Okay,
Actually, it's better today than it was last Wednesday.
good. I have a speaker that I'm using and a microphone.
Okay.
The laptop was
Mhm.
having some problems for some reason. Okay. Namaste. Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and guidance of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're also paying our humble obeisance to Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada for providing us this wonderful commentary and translation of Bhagavatam. And following the guidance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we are praying to Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī. Yadi sevā-vañcitāḥ yasyāḥ kṛpayā vayaṃ labhema sarvaṃ prāpnumaḥ prayojanaṃ dhāmni śrī-bhagavat pade Kṛṣṇa-sambandhi sarvaṃ cha Yadi na jānīmahe tutam Aṣṭādaśasu sahasreṣu ślokānāṃ bhāgavat-oktiṣu Rādhārānīṃ na vindāmaḥ tada nishphalam bhagavat-yayinam radhikaya kripam vina vyartasyat sarva-pariśramaḥ. If we are cheated out of serving that personality whose mercy awards us everything we need, including residence in the Lord's holy Dham and all things connected to Krishna, and if we cannot understand or discover Radharani within the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, then our study of Srimad Bhagavatam has been pointless. Without the mercy of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, all of our efforts are in vain. So, Swati, before coming to this class, have you been exposed to Bhagavatam before? You have. Okay. So I always think it's helpful to just connect it. How is it connected to Veda and Vedanta? Because those are the words we hear more often than Bhagavat. But within the Gaudiya Vaishnava community, the Bhagavat, the emphasis is on Bhagavat. So these three layers of revelation from ancient India, the Veda, the Vedanta, and the Bhagavat, they're all coming from Vyasadeva in different stages of his realization. He originally compiled the Vedas, and then to give what is the essence of the Vedas, he compiled Vedanta, and then even to extract the innermost essence of divine love, love of God, which wasn't so easily seen in the Vedanta. It was there, but not so easily seen. Then he compiled the Bhagavat Purana at the culmination of his spiritual maturity of the pastimes here. So that's what we're reading here. We are continuing from Canto 5, text chapter 19, text 5. Where on Wednesday, we read to 6, but I just stepped back one because the recording wasn't saved, actually, of reading text 5. Marjavatarastviha marja sikshanam raksho vadhayaiva na kevalam vibho kuto nyatasyad ramata sva-atmana sita kritani vyashani svarasya. It was ordained that Ravana, chief of the Rakshasas, could not be killed by anyone but a man, and for this reason Lord Ramchandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appeared in the form of a human being. Lord Ramchandra's mission, however, was not only to kill Ravana, but also to teach mortal beings that material happiness centered around sex life or centered around one wife is the cause of many miseries. He is the self-sufficient Supreme Personality of Godhead, and nothing is lamentable for him. Therefore, why else could he be subjected to tribulations by the kidnapping of Mother Sita? Purport. When the Lord appears in this universe in the form of a human being, he has two purposes, as stated in Bhagavad-gītā 4.8. Pratrinaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam. To destroy the demons and protect the devotees. To protect the devotees, the Lord not only satisfies them by his personal presence, but also teaches them so that they will not fall down from devotional service. By his personal example, Lord Ramchandra taught the devotees that it is better not to enter married life, which is certainly followed by many tribulations. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.19.5, Yanmatunadi grihamedi shukam hi tucham. Kandu yanena karayor iva dukha dukham. Tripyantineha kripana bahu dukhabhajaha. Kandutivan manasijam vishaheta diraha. The Kripanas, those who are not advanced in spiritual knowledge, and who are therefore just the opposite of Brahmanas, generally take to family life, which is a concession for sex. Thus they enjoy sex again and again, although that sex is followed by many tribulations. This is a warning to devotees to teach this lesson, the devotees and to human society in general. Lord Sri Ramchandra, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, underwent a series of tribulations because he accepted a wife, Mother Sita. Lord Ramchandra underwent these austerities, of course only to instruct us. Actually, he never has any reason to lament for anything. Another aspect of the Lord's instructions is that one who accepts a wife must be a faithful husband and give her full protection. Human society is divided into two classes of men, those who strictly follow the religious principles and those who are devotees. By his personal example, Lord Ramchandra wanted to instruct both of them how to fully adopt the discipline of the religious system and how to be a beloved and dutiful husband. Otherwise, he had no reason to undergo apparent tribulations. One who strictly follows religious principles must not neglect to provide all facilities for the complete protection of his wife. There may be some suffering because of this, but one must nevertheless endure it. That is the duty of a faithful husband. By his personal example, Lord Ramchandra demonstrated his duty. Lord Ramchandra could have produced hundreds and thousands of Sitas from his pleasure energy, but just to show the duty of a faithful husband, he not only rescued Sita from the hands of Ravana, but also killed Ravana and all the members of his family. Another aspect of the teachings of Lord Ramchandra is that although Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his devotees may apparently suffer from material tribulations, they have nothing to do with such tribulations. They are mukta purushas, liberated persons, under all circumstances. It is therefore said in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Yatha dekha vaishnavera vyavahara dukkha nishchaya janihataha paramananda shuka. A Vaishnava is always firmly situated in transcendental bliss because of engagement in devotional service. Although he may appear to suffer material pains, his position is called transcendental bliss in separation, viraha. The emotions a lover and beloved feel when separated from one another are actually very blissful, although apparently painful. Therefore, the separation of Lord Ramchandra from Sita Devi, as well as the consequent tribulation they suffered, is but another display of transcendental bliss. That is the opinion of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So Srila Prabhupada, in the purport to that verse, right, it's always the nature of a Vaishnava, a pure Vaishnava, such as Srila Prabhupada, to try to harmonize everything. Right? He's trying to harmonize the ancient revelation of Bhagavatam with modern life, actually, right? So he was feeding off of the initial translation of the verse where it was advising not to enter into married life due to some of the trials and tribulations that are produced from married life that distract from making spiritual progress. But then later on in the purport, after he acknowledged that, yes, this verse is giving this advice, then later on in the purport, he also, because Prabhupada inspired so many young people, men and women, couples, to come to Krishna consciousness and utilize whatever position they were in a spiritual way. So then he was also saying, but if we're in married life, then you need to act in this way. And by acting in this way, you will be able to make spiritual progress. All right. So everything that we encounter in our aspiration to make progress in devotional service is always having two sides. That the higher side, our mind is fixed on the goal of attempting to act and live in that higher way, and at the same time managing the mistakes that we make due to our natural imperfections as finite entities, as materially conditioned individuals, and managing the life circumstances that manifest due to that finite nature, and doing the best with those, and not becoming discouraged because of those, but rather persevering in the face of them, accepting everything as Krishna's mercy, looking for how we can still make progress despite our conditioning, and slowly, purify by that process of bhakti. So it's always important, I think, to try to harmonize or accommodate both sides within ourselves as spiritual seekers, as people who are really trying to make, even if it's gradual, little bit by little bit, spiritual progress. The higher goal is always there, but then also we're being present with where we are at, being honest with where we are at, and not becoming crippled by being distraught over our lack of purity, right? Because some people can become crippled by that, and they start to withdraw from everything and not try to see everything as Krishna's mercy and utilize every life circumstance in a higher way. Rather, they just will become they will just withdraw. So we're trying to not do that. We're trying to see everything as Krishna's mercy, our current condition, as an opportunity to relate to others who are possibly in a similar position as us, so that we can make spiritual progress together, actually. Right? It's an opportunity to relate to others in similar situations so that we can make progress together. And in that way, we're hoping that Guru and Krishna can be pleased with our humble yet sincere efforts. So, text 6. Nabhaisa atmatma vatam suritama Shaktastrilokyam Bhagavan Vasudeva Nastri Kritam Kasmalam Asnuvita Nalakshmanam Chapi Vihatum Arhati. Since Lord Sri Ramachandra is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, he is not attached to anything in this material world. He is the most beloved super soul of all self-realized souls, and he is their very intimate friend. He is full of all opulences. Therefore he could not possibly have suffered because of separation from his wife. Nor could he have given up his wife and Lakshman, his younger brother. To give up either would have been absolutely impossible. Purport. In defining the Supreme personality of Godhead, we say that he is full in all 6 opulences: wealth, fame, strength, influence, and beauty, as well as renunciation. He is called renounced because he is not attached to anything in this material world. He is specifically attached to the spiritual world and to the living entities there. The affairs of the material world take place under the superintendence of Durga Devi, Shristi Stiti Pralaya Sadhana Shaktirika Chaye Vayasya Bhuvanani Bibharti Durga. Brahma Samhita 5.44. Everything is going on under the strict rules and regulations of the material energy represented by Durga. Therefore, the Lord is so completely detached and need not give attention to the material world. Sita Devi belongs to the spiritual world. Similarly, Lord Lakshmana, Ramchandra's younger brother, is a manifestation of son Kṛṣṇa, who is Lord Ramchandra himself and Lord Ramchandra himself is Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the Lord is always spiritually qualified, he is attached to servants who always render transcendental loving service unto him. He is attached to the truth in life, not to Brahminical qualities. Indeed, he is never attached to any material qualities. Although he is the super soul of all living entities, he is specifically manifest to those who are self-realized, and he is especially dear to the hearts of his transcendental devotees. Because Lord Ramchandra descended to teach human society how dutiful a king should be, he apparently gave up the company of Mother Sita and Lakshman. Factually, however, he could not have given them up. One should therefore learn about the activities of Lord Ramchandra from self-realized soul. Then one can understand the transcendental activities of the Lord. Text 7. Na janma nunam mahato na subhagam na vanna bodhir na kṛtiṣṭo hetu taryad vishristan apino vanokashas chakara shakye bata lakshmana graja. One cannot establish a friendship with the Supreme Lord Ramchandra on the basis of material qualities, such as one's birth in an aristocratic family, one's personal beauty, one's eloquence, one's sharp intelligence, or one's superior race or nation. None of these qualifications is actually a prerequisite for friendship with the Lord Sri Ramchandra. Otherwise, how is it possible that although we uncivilized inhabitants of the forest have not taken noble births, although we have no physical beauty, and although we cannot speak like gentlemen, Lord Ramchandra has nevertheless accepted us as friends? Purport. In a prayer to Krishna, expressing her feelings, Śrīmatī Kunti Devi called him Akinchana Gochara. The prefix a means not, and kinchana means something of this material world. One may be very proud of his prestigious position, material wealth, beauty, education, and so on. But although these are certainly good qualifications in material dealings, they are not necessary for achieving friendship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who possesses all these material qualities is expected to become a devotee, and when he actually does, the qualities are properly utilized. Those who are puffed up by a high birth, wealth, education, and personal beauty, Janmaishvarya Shruta Shri, unfortunately do not care for developing Krishna consciousness. Nor does the Supreme Personality of Godhead care about all these material qualifications. The Supreme Lord is achieved by devotion, bhakti mam abhijanati, Bhagavad Gita 18.55. One's devotion and sincere desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead are the only qualifications. Rupa Goswami has also said that the price for achieving God's favor is simply one's sincere eagerness to have it. Lavayam ekam mulyam. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat it is said, Kola vecha seva kera deka bhagyasima Brahma Shiva Kandeyara Dekiya Mahima. Dane jane panditye Krishna nahi pai, Kevala bhaktira vasa chaitanya goshani. Behold the great fortune of the devotee Kolabicha. Lord Brahma and Shiva shed tears upon seeing his greatness. One cannot attain Lord Krishna by any amount of wealth, followers, or learning. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is controlled only by pure devotion. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a very sincere devotee whose name was Kolabicha Sridhar, and whose only business was to sell pots made of the skin of banana trees. Whatever income he had, he used 50% for the worship of Mother Ganges, and the other 50% he provided for his necessities. On the whole, he was so very poor that he lived in a cottage that had a broken roof with many holes in it. He could not afford brass utensils, and therefore he drank water from an iron pot. Nevertheless, he was a great devotee of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is a typical example of how a poor man with no material possessions can become a most exalted devotee of the Lord. The conclusion is that one cannot attain shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna or Chaitanya Goswami through material opulence. That shelter is attainable only by pure devotional service. Anya bilasita sunyam jana karmadya navratam anu ko yena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. This is from Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Madhya 19, or Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 19.167. But this is quoting from Srila Rupa Goswami, one of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's direct disciples and the acharya of the Rupanuga movement following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. So this means that one should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna, favorably and without desire for material profit or gain, through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. And we'll end our reading here for today and continue from text 8 on Monday. So we do these short readings so that we don't get too overwhelmed by the content of Bhagavatam, because there's so much being said in each verse, and then Srila Prabhupada's purport is elaborating so wonderfully in so many different directions for us. So just reading a little bit each day gives us some nourishment for our consciousness. And some devotees actually, they do Bhagavatam readings. There's different approaches. Some don't like to read verse by verse. Rather, they've read the verses on their own and they can give more summarized nuggets of wisdom and guidance based on those teachings. But we've been reading verse by verse for maybe 4 years now. We started with the first 1.1.1 or something like that for 4 years, and we've been going verse by verse. So it's nice to be able to share the reading with whoever likes to come and also listen, and then discuss whatever we could take away from the reading afterward. So, yes. And that final verse that we read today, it's from the perspective of the Western world, it's actually a revolutionary concept of religion, right? To unmotivated devotion, meaning unmotivated materially. Of course, it's spiritually motivated to please the Lord and to create that and to foster that relationship with Him through the devotees. But unmotivated in a material sense, such that right? In the Christian-dominated Western world of religious conceptions. And this is probably a very simplistic characterization of it. There's nuances to Christianity, which are very nice. And but when I was younger, basically I would always encounter, the desire to go to heaven, so that we can meet all of our deceased family members and we can get whatever we want, kind of thing. Right? And that's the idea of the afterlife, of heaven. And again, that's very simplistic, and there are more nuances for people who are more spiritually developed in the tradition of Christianity. But that generic idea of that's why we practice religion, that's why we worship God, so that when the judgment day comes, we go to heaven and we can enjoy with our deceased family members and all the opulences that heaven has to offer us. I never heard the idea that no, we're bound to this material plane of consciousness, which causes repeated birth, death, old age, and disease because of our attachment to our more self-centered desires of comfort and personal satisfaction. That because our mind, our consciousness is so absorbed in those kinds of desires and purposes, we are fragmenting ourselves from the divine whole that is reality. We're naturally a part of that divine whole, but because of our free will, when our consciousness becomes absorbed in a self-centered kind of mood of satisfaction, then this is what motivates our experience of suffering, birth and death, samsara, right? But when our consciousness recognizes our finite nature, recognizes that because we're finite, inherently we depend on so many things other than ourselves, right? Then that first layer makes us recognize, we have relationships with other finite entities, so we should respect and love those finite entities. But even beyond that, because we recognize they are still finite too, they are impermanent, constantly changing. So what is the eternal? What is the infinite? Right? Then, so this is the direction of what might be called God realization, right? That there is an infinite and absolute foundation which is conscious, from which we derive our personhood, our consciousness, and that we have a relationship to that foundation, and that if we can learn how to cultivate our mindset in reference to that whole, then we are starting to, and this is what the Vedas explain, and we are starting to turn away from that plane of birth, death, old age, and disease, which results from isolating ourselves from that context. We're starting to connect to that divine whole, which is beyond our bodily experience. And then we hear, we are the soul, not the body, and that the symptom of the soul is consciousness. So this is trying to motivate us to recognize that, in fact, the body is not who we are, that this constantly changing impermanent body that will inevitably perish is not our true identity, and that our identity lies in the observer of that body, that through process of yoga, we can actually refine our consciousness to recognize the layers of our experience, so that we can recognize actually our spiritual existence firsthand, which will increase our faith in that absolute whole that divine foundation that we're trying to cultivate relationship with through the higher processes of bhakti. So first we can recognize that we are in fact spirit, conscious spirit, by recognizing the body is being observed by us, recognizing that our emotions are observed by us, that our mental processes are observed by us. Right? We can observe our body changing. So who is that observing, which is different from the body which is changing? Right? When we reflect on our own mindset and we recognize, oh, I get triggered by this, and then I think in that way and I act in this way, and I don't like that end result action. So now when this circumstance comes about, I'm going to try to regulate myself, not get triggered, respond in a new way. Right? So who is observing that response, that mental response? Right? That's the soul. That is who we are. And we can observe even on the mental platform, because the mind is also a part of this material world. Manas, buddhi, ahankar. Those are subtle parts of this material world. When we identify with so many circumstances that are changing, and then they change and our identity with them causes suffering because we were attached to identifying with that fixed circumstance, so that when it changes, we're like, oh, now I can't identify with that, and I'm feeling some lacking because I have attachment there. We can observe that behavior. So the point of saying all this is to try to point in the direction of the observer. That's what the soul is, the consciousness. The observer is who we are. And once we recognize that, okay, we're the observer, but we keep becoming attached to all these impermanent things, where can we become attached that is permanent? What can we connect with that will be a solid ground for our identity and to derive satisfaction from, right? And that's what bhakti is telling. That's what the relationship is with God, with Krishna, with Bhagavan, who has infinite names, infinite forms. So by cultivating our identity in that direction, we will see that our attachments to all these transient things in the world becomes decreased. Not that it goes away. We're not trying to annihilate relationships in the material world, but we're trying to change our consciousness of them so that we don't see them as being for us, but rather seeing that everything is for the whole. And by starting to see in that way, then we change also the way we act to those material circumstances. We see it as the energy of the divine, and we are worshiping the divine, so how can we mistreat the energy of the divine? So now all of a sudden we are more conscientious of our actions towards the environment, right? Taking care of the environment, taking care of each other to the extent that is appropriate, right? How can we neglect the world around us when we accept it as energy of the divine and we're trying to serve the divine, right? We are actually becoming more compassionate toward the environment. Not that our action toward the environment is the totality of our spiritual practice. No, there's deeper practices that we have to go into in the association of those saintly persons who are experienced in the Vedic teachings. And we're trying to move in that direction, but a background result is that we are very much more compassionate toward the environment and towards each other. That's not the goal. The goal isn't to simply become more compassionate toward the environment and each other. It's a byproduct of the higher goal of cultivating love of God. So we're aiming for one thing, one high thing, and then all this peripheral positive things are occurring because we're moving closer and closer towards that goal. So this is all coming from that last verse that we read. That unmotivated service, loving service to the Lord that Rupa Goswami mentioned. We're not engaging in the spiritual activity so that we can enter into a higher platform of self-centered enjoyment. Right? We're doing that service because we're trying to give up that self-centered mentality so that we can not be illusioned by the changes that are always occurring and that are causing us perpetual suffering. Rather, we're recognizing that more higher kinds of sweetness, higher kind of satisfaction is there in the relationship with spirit, with recognizing that we are spirit, and then recognizing that we have a relationship to the totality of spirit. So that was my reflection from that reading. I don't know. I'd love to hear other reflections as well, if you'd like to share.
I don't have a reflection, but I have a question. If you could help me understand it.
Sure.
Okay. You talked about not getting triggered or something about getting triggered, right? How do we not get triggered by someone? Let's say I'm very passionate. I mean, you know, I'm putting the perspective out there. I'm very passionate about Sanatana Dharma. Very passionate about Lord Rama and my devotion. When someone comes and talks about annihilation of Hinduism or talks about stuff that I don't want to listen on Sanatana Dharma and Hinduism, and they do it to trigger me, how do I not get triggered?
Can you your voice was a little low. Annihilation of what?
Annihilation of Hinduism, or they say something about my gods, they say something about my dharma, just to trigger me. How do I not get triggered?
If we're accepting Vasudevam Sarvamati, Bhagavad Gita says everything is Vasudev, right? Krishna,
Mm-hmm,
as Krishna, Vasudeva is the whole, so
mm-hmm,
all parts of that whole are being in some way related to that whole. So first you should try to see that Krishna may be testing us. We can't know for sure, right? We don't know exactly why God does what God does. But if we can see that everything is happening to bring us closer to our loving relationship with the Lord, then this person might be coming to trigger you because we're not yet tolerant enough, right? Maybe our comfort zone is only when, we're comfortable only around people who think like us, who agree with the same things that we believe, and that when we encounter people that don't believe the same thing, then we feel uncomfortable. Right? That kind of comfort zone hinders our ability to actually cultivate higher consciousness. We have to become tolerant. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said we have to become more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, and give all respect to others without expecting it in return. So by trying to see things that challenge us, that make us mad, or any undesirable feeling as a test, and we become more reflective within ourselves. Well, what is triggering me? Start to just observe what is triggering me. They're saying, they're criticizing the perspective of Hinduism, and I'm becoming triggered because I feel I want to defend it, that I feel the Hindu perspective is correct and what they're saying is incorrect. Okay, that's what triggers me. So in past experiences of the same scenario, when I respond how I normally respond in defense of the Hindu perspective, what happens? Does that person actually accept what I'm saying? Do we just argue and then go separate directions, and now we are both disturbed but nobody grew from the interaction? Okay, well, if that's what always happens, let me learn from it and not become triggered and engage with them in a different way, right? So by just recognizing that we get triggered, we can change the way we respond to the circumstance. We can ask them a question. Oh, why do you think like this? Why do you feel that way? Right? Instead of just defending our perspective, we can ask a question to go deeper into relationship with that person. And even if the end result is not some agreeable position, nonetheless, we have grown, we have experienced personal development in that we didn't get triggered like we normally do, or we got triggered but we responded differently to it, and we went deeper into a more harmonious kind of relationship. And then we also exercised detachment from the end result. Right? Krishna tells us to do that in Bhagavad Gita. When you take action, don't be attached to the result. Do your best, be as sincere as possible in the activities you engage in, but don't be attached to the result of those activities. So, is that helpful?
Trying, learning. Yeah. Thank you. But it does help me in understanding certain perspectives. I do go a little deeper. I ask them, I try to argue, but then you don't want to argue with the fools either. So at some point, I just disengage and I'm like, you know what? You're not here to listen. You're not here to learn. You're not here to draw a balance. You're here to just put your perspective. So be it, bye. Right. I mean, that's what I am doing right now. But yeah,
Yes.
but it was helpful. Thank you.
Tulsi Maharani, did you have anything to say?
No, I'm glad that you asked that question because I find that we are challenged a lot by different people in different ways. And I guess also the way I would look at it is it depends on who the person is. If it's an important person in your life and you can't minimize your time with them, otherwise I would minimize my time with that person. If they're not open to sharing information and respecting me like I respect them, then maybe I would spend less time with them. I don't know what your situation is, but um, it's like you're beating your head against the wall and they're not listening and you can't get through to them. So why create your own pain? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's everyone's different. I mean, some people we can't minimize our time with because they're family, and you have to still,
True.
try to help them the best you can and work with them. But, it's like what Chris was saying the other day. It's like Michelle Obama, take the higher road, right? Take the higher road and don't bring yourself down to that level of
Exactly. Yeah.
arguing and then making yourself like negative energy.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
want to keep yourself at the higher level,
Higher level. Yes.
and that's the higher level. Sometimes it's just okay.
Mhm.
Just I'm done with this. I had an argument with my nephew the other day, and I said, "We're done here. I don't want to talk about this anymore, and we'll talk about other things instead."
True.
You know? Mhm. Yeah.
Jai. So we will conclude our meeting here for today. Very grateful for the discussion. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Srila
Jai.
Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Tirtha Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai.
Jai.
All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees. Sama Bhaktiveda Vrinda ki jai. Jai Navadvip Dham ki jai, Mayapur Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju ki jai, Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham ki jai, Sham Kund Radha Kund ki jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi ki jai. Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Scientific Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari 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 Bol. Jai Śrīmatī Tulsi Maharani Devi Dasi ki jai, Jai Bhaktaswati ki jai.
Jai Krishna Keshava Das Brahmachari ki jai.
Jai Gurudev. Hare Krishna.
Nice to
Hare
meet you,
Krishna.
Swati.
Nice to meet you too. I'll see you on next Wednesday.
Sounds
I
wonderful.
teach on Mondays. I have classes.
Okay.
So I'll see you next Wednesday and Friday.
Sounds good.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Hare Krishna.